Welcome back to Cards and Comics. Today I've got my top 10 90s baseball insert and parallel sales on eBay for February 2023. And again, these are only auctions and buy it now sales. I do not do best offers, so that's just how I've got this set up. So go right into it. We'll start with a controversy. This is an error card. Not really an error. It's really a printing defect. I've talked about this in a previous video. And I even created a little song about it. So if you want to check that out. But this is the no name on front Frank Thomas rookie card. Probably one of the most important cards from the 90s. You got to remember the 89 Upper Deck Griffey was in the 80s, not a 90s card. So this could be one of the most important cards in the 90s. Again, it sold at auction, 53 bids. Now, the thing that's interesting is it sold, it's a PSA 3. Whereas a PSA 7 sold for just $249 more on a best offer in December. And a raw copy sold for almost $4,800 on February 24th. So you're getting to the point where this card is so in demand, the demand side is so much higher than the raw side, or the supply side, that it's causing crazy prices for whenever legitimate copies pop up. Now, Topps did stupid things like reprint this card in multiple versions to where people try to sell that as a fake card. People have tried to fake this card multiple times. So it's a card that you have to really pay attention to make sure you're not getting ripped off. However, I will also say this, is that there's been 255 versions graded by PSA. Now, I know a lot of those are pop and resubmits. However, I know SGC and BGS have graded copies of this card as well. And so, to me, that just shows that the pop count, or the amount of these cards in existence, is probably closer to 300 to 400, maybe even 500 copies of this card exist. So, I just don't want people to think that this card only has 10 or 20 or 30 copies out there. There is probably close to 300 to 500 copies of this card that are in existence. So, it's not what I call a super duper rare card that you will never see again. There's cards out there, that are super rare, super hard to get, 20, 40 copies max. This is not one of them. So, but the demand for it is super high. So that's causing the price to accelerate, even on a VG3 copy here. So again, this is one of those cards that if you have a copy, you've definitely got a key card from the 90s that I would recommend holding on to for even longer, because this card seems to not be slowing down anytime soon. Next up, Flair Showcase 98 Flair Showcase Row Zero Legacy King Griffey Jr. PSA 10, $8,100 basically, sold at auction on February 21st. 64 bids, so pretty active auction. And I would say this is that if you go on Instagram, there's Joey Peapod, who's a big time Instagram person that talks or shows off his King Griffey Jr. collection. And him and quite a few others are pretty big PSA 10 only collectors. And I say only, what I mean is that's what they focus on. Now, they may have other grades, because sometimes there's certain cards that don't exist in PSA 10. What I will say, though, is that when 10s come up that this group of collectors don't have, you can see by this auction result, it's very active, very competitive, and they drive up the value of these cards pretty high if they don't have them. So, again, a PSA 8 version of this card sold for $2,400 in January. You can see the delta between the 8 and 10, 3 to 4x. So, again, this is why, Griffey cards are graded so heavily, and why, they show up in these top 10 lists quite often, because the PSA 10 collectors of the 90s Griffey cards is tremendously deep-pocketed, and they love their cards. So, this card is a good example of that. Now, this card is numbered out of 100 for people who don't know, so this is a very low pop card anyway, so that's why an 8 sold for $2,400, and a damaged raw copy sold for $560 as well. So, again, great looking card. A lot of people love this legacy cards. It's great to see other sets showcased as well, and this is one of those really cool inserts that came out in the 90s that people just love. Now, next up, number 8, Derek Jeter, Century Marks Leaf Signatures from 1996. It's an interesting card. So it sold for $8,200 at auction. So again, another auction, February 27th. 48 bids. So the 96 Leaf Signature was the first product to insert one autograph per pack of Major League Baseball players' autographs. Now, it had 2 series. It had the first series and the extended series. Well, if you go back to that time period, the Series 1 was lacking a lot of stars. And so Series 2 tried to make up for it. So it only had 50 players versus 100 for one thing. And the star or the good player ratio was much higher in the extended product, which is why, including the Jeter auto as well, was in there. So if you go back and look at price points in terms of box value, the extended series have always been a lot more valuable, more expensive, and just highly sought after because of the shorter checklist with a much higher hit ratio in terms of good player. Now, the Jeter was an exchange card. His base card, again, was alive in the product. So if you buy a box of this product, and if you hit a Century Mark card, unfortunately, it's going to be exchange. If you hit his base card, his base auto, it's going to be live. Now, Century Marks are limited to 100 cards, but they're not serial numbered. But they do have this cool little foil Century Marks stamping on them, so you can tell that they're different. So you shouldn't be fooled too often on this card if someone tried to pass off a base Jeter as a Century Marks. It does not have that cool foil stamping. Only 1/9 and 1/10 for this card. So that just shows that this card is extremely limited, and being an exchange, you can be very certain that not all 100 cards were found. So it's a very cool card. It's a very early autograph of Derek Jeter. So I can see why people would love this card and why it fell at number 8 on the list. And $8,200 is not a little amount. So this was a pretty big sale of an early Jeter card. Next up is Jeter again. He's on the list quite a bit. So Jeter is definitely a solid number 2 in the 90s player universe. Right behind Griffey, in my opinion. This is the PMG. Now, we talked about PMGs in the January video where I talk about how there's certain inserts like PMGs and and other insert sets that people are going after as sets. Now, what happens when that occurs, when you get people out there collecting sets, you also have people collecting players, and that creates a lot of competition. So you got your set builder that needs the card, you've got your actual player collectors trying to get the card. So I do feel like that's creating some of this upward mobility in these PMG cards. Now, this was a buy now, and this 99 Metal Universe set, the PMG Jeter, is a card that, to me, isn't quite as attractive as other PMGs from other years. The gold foil embossed logo, so that MLPD is embossed, but the PMG foil, or just the numbering, doesn't really make the card look that different. And to me, it just doesn't look like a card. Like, I wouldn't view this card as a PMG if someone were to show it to me without telling me it was a PMG, which is maybe why the set wasn't quite as popular as other PMG sets, which had very distinctive background color foil, or just a different pattern that really stood out. This pop count is 17, so there's only 50 cards in the PMG set, or serial number to 50. There's 5 8s, 2 9s, no 10. So again, this is the highest graded version of this card with only 2 9s. So again, if you're a player collector, this card would definitely be high on your list as a Jeter collector. But again, we've seen a lot of cards being hit because of set collectors, because You can tell because they're hitting commons as well as stars. That's a good indicator that someone's trying to put a set together. Number 6, another PMG Jeter. This is a base Jeter. So this is what the base cards look like. And again, you get that gold foil background. They look a little nicer. Again, 99 is not my favorite PMG set. They do look much better in person than they do on screen. I will give them that. Again, a bite now that was hit, $9,500. So this is his base card, which is always more sought after than a subset card like the MLPD card was. It's a PSA 6 versus a PSA 9 as well. So if someone paid $1,000 more for a PSA 6, I would still, from a Delta perspective, much rather have this card even as a PSA 6 than a subset card. But I understand why they're both numbered out of 50. So they're both really rare. Now, this is one of the first sets issued by Flair Skybox after being sold from Marvel. And one of the things that was interesting when I read about the set was they changed the look of the set and the background or the flavor text on the back to be more kid-friendly or more juvenile. And so that's why the look of the set looks really different compared to prior years. And again, the designs don't really look that great, in my opinion, compared to prior years. But it's still a PMG, it's still low numbered. And the pop count on this card shows 9 total graded cards with 1 8, 1 10, and no 9s. So this card is still very low pop. It's an important card for Jeter and the collectors out there putting the set together. So again, it doesn't surprise me it sold for close to $10,000. Now at number 5, we've hit the $10,000 barrier. 98 Bowman's Best Mirror Image Atomic Refractor King Griffey Jr. This is a surprise to me because the fact that there's cards numbered to 25, which this card is, it's a low pop. And the odds were 1 in 3,237 packs to get this insert. So good luck buying boxes of 98 Bowman's Best and trying to pull one of these cards because it's extremely hard. So that's all something I understand. However, this kind of die cut card with Ben Grieve on the back has never been a card that I've associated with as being a massive King Griffey Jr. card, other than it's numbered to 25. There's other versions, the refractor version, the regular version. Again, the refractor version is numbered out of 100. Now, it sold for $1,500 in February as well, and it was a PSA 10. So this set is gaining in popularity quickly. Football and basketball collectors as well have turned to this set as another cool set that people are putting together. I feel like this is just one of those card sets that kind of stealthily gained popularity over time. It looks really cool. It's die cut, cool foil, low number, so it makes sense. But Bowman's Best from the 90s isn't a premier product. In most cases, it was definitely an also ran in the rookie card side of it compared to Bowman Chrome. And just in general, the Bowman's Best cards weren't considered to be the high end. So it's interesting that this insert set has gained so much in popularity, but I can tell, that collectors have really glammed onto it, and this card probably has nowhere to go but up. In the general terms of if all Griffey inserts are going up, this would be one of the cards that people still consider to be, or starting to consider to be, a key Griffey 90s card. So very cool to see it on the list. And again, it did surprise me. This broke $10,000 in a BGS 9.5. Number 4 is our old friend, the 94 Upper Deck King Griffey Jr. Mickey Mantle Dual Auto. Again, from Upper Deck 1994. This was a buy now, $12,850. And again, I have to keep reiterating that this card definitely does not look like it is a pack pulled auto. This looks like to be a Mickey Mantle single auto card that someone had Griffey autograph and slab after they pulled it from a pack. So this is not a pack pulled Griffey auto. I will show you what a Griffey pack pulled auto looks like. They do not look anything similar, because this is King Griffey Jr. signing card in 94 versus King Griffey Jr. signing card probably pretty recently. Again, I love cards that are in their native state. I'm not a fan of aftermarket autos. I'm just, a get off my lawn type of collector. But this to me is done in a way to try to trick collectors that it's a pack pulled card. Someone paid $12,850 for an aftermarket auto. They probably think they're getting a pack pulled version, honestly. So again, be very careful with this card. Do not get fooled by aftermarket auto versions on the Mickey Mantle base version. What this is going to also do is make the Mickey Mantle single version be very rare to find at some point, because everyone's getting them signed by Griffey. So I think that just makes this card all the more rare as the Mantle base card by itself. But to me, don't get fooled. Don't get snookered by someone trying to pass this card off as a pack pulled version. Okay, number 3, $12,900. 98 Donruss Crusade Ken Griffey Jr. Red PSA 7, numbered out of 25. So this is an interesting review or comparison of two cards. So we had the Bowman's Best Mirror Image to 25. Now you've got a Crusade. Now that Bowman's Best Mirror Image was a BGS 9.5. So Jim meant this card's a PSA 7 worth, sold for almost $3,000 more. That just shows you the popularity of the Crusade set and just how much people love this set. Now, the one thing on this card that I think is true, it could be an optical illusion. Sometimes it happens during scans, but it looks like there's a print line right across the top of the Ken Griffey Jr. name. So that might be one of the reasons why it's a 7. However, this card's numbered to 25. The Crusade set is insanely popular. People love the set. And again, the Griffey was inserted in the Donruss base set. Other sets with Crusades were Leaf, Donruss, Update, and Leaf Stars and Rookies. The Leaf Stars and Rookies only has the rookies in them. So it's always been, from a box opening perspective, don't buy the Leaf Stars and Rookies if you're looking for the vets, because you only get the rookies, and there's not very many rookies worth much money in that set. Again, this set was unannounced, so no one knew this Crusade insert was actually in these products until they opened packs. And it's been plagued, again, by print lines, which I think you can see an example right here. It does seem very low in price to me compared to recent sales of things like PMGs and Essential Credentials. Again, because I mentioned the fact that you've got both player collectors and set collectors, I think, really trying to get those sets done. This could also just be the fact that $13,000 is a lot of money. So, and it's a PSA 7. If this was a PSA 10, you would have the 10 boys come out on the Griffey collecting side and run this up to some astronomical number. So, but there's only 25 copies. So, again, this to me was a good value. If you ever bought this card, good on you, son. Good job. This was, to me, a good value for a card that's pretty iconic. Next up, number 2, $13,655. 97 Pinnacle, totally certified platinum gold Ken Griffey Jr. Love the 90s cards that have these great, complicated, long names. But this card, again, platinum gold, just kind of weird. But this card was numbered out of 30. And so, again, back in the day, in the 90s, cards this low numbered were not common. This set is beloved by collectors. The one thing that was very interesting about this set was that it, odds-wise, was only 1 in 79 packs. This product was very expensive for 97. And the one thing I would say that is really cool about this card is that Totally Certified was only produced in 97. The 98 set had some of these cards inserted into regular certified packs. So you could get some of the certified platinum golds in regular certified packs, but they never issued the 98 Totally Certified set. They went bankrupt and it was scrapped. So there has been some cards pulled from packs, but not all 30. And again, so the 97 set was the only one that you could really hang your hat on and say, if I want a totally certified platinum gold card, you have 1 year to pick from, and there's only 30 cards. Sold by auction, 34 bids. It's a beautiful card. it's been on a Griffey, hierarchy, pedestal, top of the mountain card for forever. So if you have one of the 30 people in the world that have this card, it's a very, very cool card. And it's a BGS 10, so it fits a lot of people's buckets and checklists for what they look for. So again, doesn't surprise me. Love this card. Would love to have it. Again, it's on the mountain of Griffey cards that probably will never get, but love to look at. Number 1, and this is a card that goes back to something that I think we all forget about, is the the mega power of the 96 Select set. So this is the 96 Select Certified Mirror Blue Derek Jeter. So this was really the first set that did these super low parallels in multiple versions that were really limited. The blues were limited to 45 copies. The reds were 90 copies. So again, finding these cards, they were very sensitive condition-wise. So this is a PSA 10. So again, $19,000 for this PSA 10. There are only 45 copies in existence. Now, you could say, well, how do we know there's 45 copies? We've all been fooled, like with the 93 Finest refractors, that there's 255 copies. How do we know there's just 45? Well, collectors who've been really active in this community, buying these products, opening these products, tracking these products, have basically said, across multiple message boards I've looked at, and Baseball Cardopedia also agrees, that 45 seems to be right. That at this time, they weren't trying to do a bait and switch, weren't trying to hype the product up like they would in later years. Select definitely became, in later years, when they quit, serial numbering cards or kind of telling you what the print runs were, but it didn't really match up. That happened later. This was really the first year of doing it. They were very careful. They only printed 45 cards, and that seems to be right. Again, there's been 54 copies graded by PSA with 210s. However, many cards were resubmitted over and over. So we still think 45 is the correct print run. And again, if they had a few cards damaged that were sent back in or whatever, maybe there was a little more than 45 printed, but they don't really match up in terms of just how many are available and how many have been opened and the tracking that's been done by collectors. So I think you could be very careful or very safe that if you bought one of these cards, paid $19,000 for this 10, for example, you have a very rare card. There's not a warehouse full of these cards sitting around waiting to be released into the collecting world. So very cool card. It's nice to see an oldie like this card hit the list, because we don't see these cards pop up very often. And to see one like this, the Derek Jeter Blue, bring so much money, just shows that this set has super duper pricing power still in the hobby to bring tremendous value. There it is, guys. That's the top 10 list. Now, I do want to do one more thing, is I want to look at the comparison from January to February, just to kind of think about a few things, from those two, from January to February comparison. But I also want to do one honorable mention for this month, was that a 98 Metal Universe PMG Deion Sanders card sold for almost $5,000. So when I talk about that someone's putting the PMG set together, this is what I mean. For Deion Sanders to bring almost $5,000, there's competition for just every card, not just the number one cards. And the one thing I also want to point out too, sorry for my voice a little bit, is that from a scale perspective, the number 10 card in January sold for $3,800, while the number 10 card in February sold for $5,900 cards, and the average card value was about a $4,000 difference in average value on the top 10 list between January and February. So that shows that January could be a few things. One, January, after Christmas, maybe not as many big cards available, or just people weren't, paying or hitting buy it nows because they had the Christmas thing going on. But in February, people came back with a vengeance, tons of great cards available, and man, a lot of cards selling for over $10,000. Now, if you look at the player breakdown between January and February, there were 7 players on the list in January. Yeah, Griffey, Jeter, Gwynn, Bonds, Thomas, Chipper Jones, Nolan Ryan. Well, you only have 3 in February. So it does show that in general, the 90s have just a few big names, just like in basketball, just like in football. It's all very similar. However, January was the first month I looked at, but it was very diverse. February seems more realistic to how the sets really are, in terms of the 90's as a group of cards, that Jeter, Griffey, and Frank Thomas are going to dominate, maybe Nolan Ryan as well. But there's only going to be a few players show up on this list month to month. So we'll keep tracking it, we'll keep listing it. But that is my 90's February review of the top 10 sales for baseball card inserts and parallels. Let me know what you think, how I can do better, things that I can improve upon. And if you liked it or not, give me a thumbs up or a like in the comments, or subscribe if you want to. And I'll see you next time on Cards and Comics.